welcome to Charlie's Truth channel. I am so excited to be here. It's been such a long time coming. Before I jump right into things, my name is Charlie and I am a spiritual life development guide and life coach. I'm all about assisting you on your deep self-development journey. I have a platform over on IG called Charlie's Truth. I've been doing that for a while. And I'm just excited to be here. I don't even know what to say. This has been such a long time coming, and this is the first official video. When I first started Charlie's Truth, it was all about sharing my journey. And, you know, it started with sharing my journey about the bar exam because I was in law school and I was taking the bar. And it kind of then developed into, you know, me moving over to life coaching because I have been a certified life coach since 2013. And I was just ready to delve into this world. I have always been doing life coach-ish work and things of that sort. It just naturally comes to me. It's always naturally came to me. And so this channel is going to be all about me sharing my journey with you. As much as I assist others and support them on their journeys, reality is, right, that I am also on a journey. We never stop on our life journey. And so I just want to come through and share my journey with you. And to also just talk about shit that matters, talk about things that you have like brought to my attention or questions that you ask me over on different platforms, and just coming here so that we can share it as a collective. I also have a podcast called the B.O.L.D Project, and as the B.O.L.D is B.O.L.D project, which is an extension of a 31-day self-development or self-exploration journey that I self-published back in 2018. And so I am so excited to just be here to start this platform, to get things going. And today I wanted to talk about something that's very dear to my heart. Just to back up a little, I am located in New York City, so I currently reside in New York, and so hopefully I will get to share my life with you. I will get to share, you know, the experience of New York City with you, and just little tidbits here and there. I'm really excited to be here, and so because this is the first video, and instead of me filling it up completely with just all these things about me, I wanted to talk about like all these like just general things about me. I wanted to talk about my spiritual journey a little bit, and just like the last portion of it that really turned things around for me. Before we get started, I just want to define spirituality because I know that there's so many different opinions of it. But from my perspective, when I talk about spirituality, I am talking about the journey of the power of the spirit. And in that sense, it's about the connection with that higher power. For me, is God, right? And it's that journey of becoming, getting back to that connection with God, getting back to your oneness. And so that is what I am talking about when I'm talking about spirituality. I'm not talking about religion. And with that being said, let me tell you a little bit about my spiritual journey. So I did not grow up in or around churches. I had been to churches when I was little. I remember going to a Baptist church maybe once or twice. And then as I grew up, I kind of went to, as I grew up, there was Bibles in my mom's house. Like there would be a Bible on the table that just sat on the table all the time, just opened. And that was pretty much it. I think that we went to church probably once or twice. My mom even opened herself up to Mormons at one point. Like, so she was very also, like me, open-minded. And then, you know, as time went on, when I would pray, so I always kind of prayed, and I would pray, and like at 18, 19, I would pray and I would get responses to my prayers. Like I literally would pray about whether or not an ex was cheating, and I would get a message, right, or see a vision. And I was just like, whoa, I just thought I was magical, right? Because at this time in my life, I also was able to, you know, feel other people's emotions. I can tell when people were lying. I knew how to push people buttons really well. I knew how to manipulate people. Like I knew what were people's trigger points. Like just by watching them, I knew their trigger points. Like something in me was just like boom, 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 boom. And so I just always felt like I was this magical person, that I had these superpowers. And I would always pray that I don't take advantage of people, because I knew stuff that they didn't know I knew. And so I still didn't fully understand that, but I just knew that that was something for me to pray for and for me to be mindful of, because I didn't want to take advantage of people. Like, though I knew things, I didn't think that it was meant to hurt them. Used to hurt them, that it was just meant to, for me to know what I was walking into, because I had a very interesting past growing up in foster care, getting back with my biological mom, and just seeing, having that relationship that was never really nurtured, and just, experiencing a lot of distrust among people and in relationships, and not really being able to feel like I can trust or lean on people. And so I always felt like that gift was just that, to help me on this journey of life. And still, I didn't really understand it. And so life goes on, and then I'm like 18, 19, and I'm feeling this way. And then in my 20s, I'm in the military, and I started experiencing depression. And so at this time, right, I'm already praying. I think I was also going to church once in a while with my friends. But something about church, just like, I love praise and worship. I love hearing the word. I love like hearing people's interpretations of things. And so stuff like that always like really resonates with me, really makes me happy and excited, and just gives me a perspective. And I will say, partially, I was trying to find myself, right? Trying to understand, like, some things just didn't make sense to me, and I didn't really know how to explain it to other people outside of me, just like what I was feeling and what I was questioning. But I had people around me that kind of just would like, you can't question God, or, this is a sin and that's just it. And there was just a lot of different things going on around me, because I was also dating women. And so like the homosexuality thing was like a big focus for people. And, in my mind, it's just like, there's so many things I am dealing with. And if homosexuality is your main focus, then I just don't know what else to say, right? There are so many other issues that I was dealing with and experiencing, that I just wish that there was more attention paid to those things. But homosexuality was a thing that, a lot of people in the church and around would like harp on. And I have friends who wasn't inside the church, who would just remind me, like, God has always been there for you, right? God has always been there for you. And, even when you were dating women, and even when you weren't, like, God has always been there for you. So don't believe that, he's turning you away. Don't believe that he's turned his back on you. Don't believe that, he's somehow completely disappointed and has disowned you. And so for me, when I think of God, I don't see an image. I don't see anything. I don't envision anything. Well, at least at that time, like, people have these visions and these ideas of what God looks like, how he acts, what he is. And for me, I just didn't have that. I didn't have this expectation of what this God idea was. I just thought it was. And so as life goes on or whatever, and I'm in my 20s, like I said, I was going to church. I was in the military. I started experiencing depression. And then, my sister, my elder sister reminded me, just pray day and night, pray day and night. And so like I was praying, things were definitely happening. I had considered myself a prayer warrior, because when I say I was praying and things would just turn around, like they would. Or I would get clarity about something. And I'm also a person who journals a lot. And so like I would get a lot of aha moments, and journaling has certainly became my outlet and my place where I would meet God, where I literally felt like I was meeting up with God, and I would get whatever clarity. So anytime a situation was happening or things were going on, even with my friends and we was having confrontations, I would be like, hey, I need to go journal. I'm gonna call you back, because I just needed clarity from God. And I knew right then and there I would get some kind of clarity to allow me to deal with situations a little different than I would have had I came from strictly my emotions. And so this is happening in my 20s, and so I'm going to church, but for some reason I'm still not like, I'm not finding a church home where I felt like home. I felt like I wanted to be a part of it. And for me, I had this belief, right, for myself, that church wasn't a place you just go and be like, to say, oh, I went to church today, right? Like, you just go to church and then you come out and you be like, oh, well, I went to church on Sunday. Did you go to church? You know what I mean? Like, that just wasn't what I believe church was about. It was about fellowshipping. And I also believe that, fellowshipping also happens outside the church, right? It happens with your friends. It happens, in conversations all the time. And so, the reasons behind why people was going to church and there were people who were trying to, like, kind of, I don't want to say this is a fact, right? Because this is only my perspective, where they would kind of guilt me. You know, when I have friends that were super into church and they would guilt me because I wasn't going to church, or I wasn't going every Sunday, or I would just go listen to church online. I had that too going on around me. And I will admit there were times where I believed other people over myself, where I believed that, you know, God wasn't supporting me, or I was making the bad decisions, or I was doing this, I was doing that. And you know, I was just going through life, and that included like partying and drinking and doing whatever it is that some 20 something year olds do, to just not deal with their problems, or to not want to look within themselves. And so I definitely experienced that. And so as life is going on, you know, I'm still praying without ceasing. I got to a place where I was okay with not going to church, where I had decided that it wasn't enough for me to just keep saying I went to church on Sunday and I wasn't building relationships. I was just going to say I went. And granted, like, I was getting something from it, right? Because you get to praise and worship, you get to hear the word. And hold on, I'm gonna pause because you hear that. It's the fire department. I'll be right back. And you get to praise and worship, and you know, you get to hear the word and all these things. And I believe that those things are very beneficial. I believe they're very helpful, and I believe that you do gain something from it. You know, it does feed your soul, and I don't take anything away from that. But it was also true for me that no matter what I was doing, I was always gaining. You know, whether I was learning a lesson of something I didn't want, or learning a lesson from something I did want, I was always being fed in some kind of way, learning in some kind of way. And it didn't matter, you know, it may just come from different places, but I had to learn to be okay with doing what I felt was right for me. And I just felt like, you know, going to church just to say I was going just wasn't resonating with me. And I had read a book called Unmerited Favor. And in that book of Unmerited Favor, it's by Joseph Prince. It changed my life. That was a book I started reading after I decided I was getting out the military, but before I was officially out. And basically that book taught me that I should be reading the Bible for myself. That I don't have to lean on other people's interpretation of it. That I needed to read the Bible by myself, and I needed to have a relationship with God. Not just, oh, you go to church on Sunday, you sing, you praise, you do all these things, but to have a true relationship with God. And so that's what I started to focus on. I started to truly have confidence to build a relationship with God and to do what felt right for me. So as I was building my relationship with God, I started to learn what felt right for me. And what felt right for me was whatever it was. And in that moment, you know, it wasn't so much about finding a church home as it was to live and embody, you know, these qualities that Jesus had. And these qualities that, you know, help us to bring more love into this world. And that was what was more important to me than me simply just going to church, but me truly changing my character, becoming more of who I wanted to be, becoming more of a light for this world. And I knew within myself that there was already things about me where I didn't see the world the way that the rest of the world saw me. And because, the way I didn't see the world the way the rest of the world saw the world, at least as it related to the people around me, the people I grew up with, the people that had raised me. You know, like I just didn't see the world the same. And it took me a while to start speaking my truth and to start speaking up for myself, to be like, hey, that doesn't resonate with me. I'm not going to just believe that, or I'm not going to live in this way because you think it's right, because that is just your belief. And, you know, it took me some time to get that confidence and find my voice. To live in a way that really resonated with my soul and felt good to my soul. And so fast forward, right, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still developing. I experienced depression. So I get through law school and everything else. I end up in D.C. because I was in Cali. So I end up in D.C. And I did look for a church in D.C., and I also had a supervisor, my supervisor was also very much knew the Bible, knew the word, and she was just like such a light. And she used to talk to me all the time and really encourage me to follow my path. And, you know, whatever that looks like and felt like for me. And so I continued on my journey, and I get to New York, and I have a job and everything else, and everything is just like, on the outside looking in, everything is great, right? But I know the way my world works is a little different than, you know, most people's. Like, I would just, the way I experienced life was just like, things that everyone else thought was normal and that we should be doing and we need to go after. You know, I tried those things and they just didn't resonate with me and they didn't feel good for me. And despite that, I would still try to do them, and then it will only lead me to depression. And so I started experiencing depression again in the end of 2017. Like, it was going on for a while, and by the end of 2017, I had decided that, you know what, enough is enough. Like, this lifestyle I'm living doesn't resonate with me. It hasn't resonated with me for years. I gave it a try, and you know, I was praying without season. I finally felt that God was telling me that I could let go. I could let go of trying to do all this should, and that I could go after what my heart truly desired, which was to help people on a deeper level. You know, at the time, the law I was doing was housing law, and I just felt like the work I was doing was very surface level, and it wasn't getting to the root of people problems, people issues, and that was like a pain point for me in a lot of different law areas I had tried, because I felt like, you know, we are solving problems at a surface level, but the thing was that people kept ending up in the same situation. And so for me, it's like, all right, well, clearly there are deeper things happening, and it's not enough for us to put a band-aid on it. And the situations that I had saw reminded me a lot of what it was like to be a foster child here in New York City. And so I was just like, I can't be part of this, because I feel like we're just keeping the status quo, and I'm not here for that. Like, that is not something that resonates with my values, and that's not something I want to stand on. And I get that I have bills to pay, but I also trust that God always shows me a way. And so I left the job, and at the time I was just going through a lot. I had started to think about committing suicide before I had left. Before I had officially gave my notice, I definitely had a moment where I was just like, I've tried everything. I did everything that I thought the world told me to do. I did everything society has told us to do. I don't know what else is there. If I have to live this way, then I don't want to have to. I don't want to live at all, because it was miserable, right, for me. And so, like, I had that moment where I thought about, like, suicide, and it was just so sad. You know, I got so sad for myself, like, that I had gotten to that point, and finally I told myself, like, we have to make a change. And at that time, I had felt God telling me, like, you can go. And I had already known that the job that I had taken was temporary, because Spirit told me when I started that this was temporary. And I mean, you know, when Spirit tell you something is temporary, let me tell y'all something. Temporary don't have no time limit, right? So I know it's temporary, right? Because this world is temporary. But what exactly did that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what exactly did temporary mean for when it came down, when I got that download, right? And the amazing thing about my journey is that, like, at least for me, is that I never believed that I would retire from someone's 9 to 5. I never even felt like I should have been working a 9 to 5. Like, that was not a goal I had. It was not like I was younger and I was like, oh, I want to go to school, get a grad degree, and work this 9 to 5. Like, that was just not my thing. Like, I had never been that woman to feel like that was what she ideally wanted to get to. I didn't know how else I was gonna live, but I never really thought like a 9 to 5 was for me. Like, that typical traditional life was mine. And so, you know, a lot of things I was doing, I would be asking God, like, why are we here? Like, what are we doing? But, you know, the great thing is that, you know, everything matters. And, you know, like, having God by your side gives you a lot of hope. And I remember one of my homeboys had told me that, like, he had his own spiritual beliefs, and he told me, he was like, you know, you consider yourself a Christian, or you believe in this God, right, Jesus Christ, or whatever he considered I was believing in, because you need hope. You know, it gives you hope. Not you need. He said it gives you hope. And I was like, maybe. Because the thing with me is that I wasn't holding on to any of my beliefs so strongly that, like, so strongly that I was completely convicted of them. I knew there was a God. So that was something you couldn't argue with me with. This whole religion thing, I wasn't going to argue with you. Mainly because I had not I had not done the research deep enough to know. I knew that there was a God. What form God came in, the story of God, I had not done the research, and so arguing with you or trying to defend my beliefs was so unnecessary for me. I didn't feel a need to do that. I also never really thought about the devil much. You know how people are always talking about this devil? I never really thought about the devil much. Like, I never gave my attention to certain things. And so though the world was constantly talking about it and Christianity was constantly talking about it, and I was sitting in church and all these conversations was being had, I had not officially adopted anything. I was figuring things out. And so I continued on. So at that time where I'm going through depression, I'm thinking about leaving my career, right, as an attorney. A very, very close friend of mine at the time, and you know, our lives really tended to mirror one another, and I'm pretty sure it was a soulmate relationship. Our lives really mirrored each other. We were both Leos. We were both pretty amazing, if I had to say so myself. And you know, like, he was also on his spiritual path, and he mentioned to me the ego. And he was like, you kill the ego and you'll be fine, right? When I was going through my depression, but he didn't really explain it to me. He just said, kill the ego and you'll be fine. So I go into therapy and I'm like, tell me about this ego, you know? Because when I heard ego growing up, it's like, you got a big ego. And that didn't really tell me nothing. It was just like, oh, you full of yourself. And so, you know, ego had this negative connotation from what I knew, and I didn't really think much of it. And so when my homeboy had mentioned it, and I went into therapy, and so my therapist ended up mentioning a book. I think it was Ego is the Enemy. I have different ego books, but I'm pretty sure it was Ego is the Enemy. And so, like, later on, my homeboy ended up mentioning the book too, and I had already read it. And so I was already starting my journey of learning about the ego. And so, you know, everything just started happening really quick, because at this time I'm practicing mindfulness, and just millions of things is like hitting me. A lot of clarity is coming to me, and I'm starting to take responsibility for my life and my choices. And so my therapist was really good at that time, because she kind of helped me kind of start taking the steps to let go of my job, and to help me to see that, you know, the life I was living was a choice that I was making. And everything that I was doing had been choices I made. And so for me to kind of say, like, you know, I have to do this, I have to have this typical 9 to 5, I have to do it this way, was me putting those limitations on myself. It wasn't something I had to do. It was what I was choosing to do. And, you know, the more I became more mindful, the more I became more aware of the choices I was making and how they were truly impacting my life. And I decided to take a step back and figure out, like, was I even living the life that I truly wanted to live? And if not, why was I doing the things I was doing? What was my why for the things I was currently doing? And what really did resonate with me? And what did I want to let go of? And so I started to do that work on that. And so as I'm getting in alignment with my soul and getting to really connect with myself and start living in my truth in a whole new level now, right? Because back in the day, I used to always say, I just want to be free. And at the time, I didn't fully know what it meant, but it just kept coming to me. And so, you know, as I'm on this journey, I started to feel freer and freer. It was like parts of me were shedding these stories I was telling myself, this hurt I was holding on to, these relationships that I was holding on to. You know, things were just dropping. Like, relationships were ending, you know, doors were closing, and all for my good. Like, I was just like, okay, great. Like, I mean, it didn't make total sense to me, but I figured that I was at a place where there was time for change. And so when there is time for change and there's a place for change, things are going to start dropping. You know, when your life is about to shift, relationships change, situations change, and that was my experience. And it had always been my experience that when I go through depression or when I'm in depression, that means it's about to be a whole different shift to my life. And this is a whole different wake-up call. And nothing would be the same. And so that had been my experience. And I knew that though that had been in my experience, that doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. But I was trusting that I was being led to something bigger and that I was getting more clarity. I was starting to be able to be more mindful and actually hear myself and get downloads clearer. And I was learning how to not be so afraid. And so I continued on with this journey. And as I was like, you know, connecting with myself and doing different things, you know, people were coming along my path, and I was just learning different things from different people. And somehow, some way, I got into the spiritual world for real, where there are psychics and there are oracle readers and there are tarot card readers, and there's this whole world. And the interesting thing is, I had always been scared of tarot card readers, psychics, for different reasons, right? Like, I was scared of psychics because I felt like they could really read my mind, right? And like, what if I'm this horrible person and they know it, you know? Like, I had all these different fears. And so, you know, I was getting into crystals. That's how everything started. I started to get into crystals. So anywho, I like get into crystal oracle cards and all this stuff, and these is people around me who practice these things. And so, you know, I was fearful of them. I was fearful because, like, I didn't know what they knew, right? And I didn't know what they were capable of. And I had also grew up in a place where I heard that voodoo was bad and that people do bad things to people, and, you know, they do magic on them. Basically, they do voodoo on them and they just ruin your life or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I was scared of all these things. And then as a Christian, right, they barely want you to believe in astrology, let alone these psychics and these tarot readers and all these other things, right? And just when you put that label of Christianity on you, it kind of changes your world. And I will say, for me, that label of Christianity, though I didn't really feel like it resonated with me, as from a religious standpoint, I kind of still allowed it to be placed on me and kind of adopted it, kind of, sort of, and the reality of that was just that, it didn't limit the way I was living. It held me in these kind of shackles. And I will say, because, right, if I'm afraid of terror and I'm afraid of, you know, these different things, then that's going to keep me from connecting with people who do those things, because I am afraid, right? And being a Christian, a lot of people, one thing I learned, a lot of people don't really delve into other religions to learn, or delve into other religions for whatever other reason, because of their fear that their beliefs are going to be snatched away from them. Their fear that they're going to find something out that doesn't resonate with their current truth. And that was me. That was what I was going through, and I witnessed other people go through it too. And so this is really why I wanted to share my spiritual journey story, because I want you all to know where I come from as I'm talking from my perspective, because all I have is my perspective, and that's all I can share with you guys, my understanding, my awareness, and the knowledge I have. And so when I am doing these videos moving forward, they're all going to come from my limited perspective, and that encompasses my journey. And so where I am in my spiritual journey is because of these things I've been through and these things I've experienced, and, you know, the journey I've been on, you know. And so as we continue on, right, so I realized that I'm afraid of all these things, the psychics, the tarot card readers, and all these other things that are happening. And so I finally, when I brought awareness to that fact, and I brought awareness to also that I was actually angry with the church. I had felt rejected from the church, and I didn't know that I was holding those feelings in. I didn't know that I was holding that pain in. I didn't know that I was holding those feelings in. But when people would post, and like they would say posts like about going to hell and all these things, I would be so offended. Like, why are you saying these things to people? Like, that's just gonna turn people away from God. Like, that is just your belief. And like, these are things I said in my head, but I was realizing I was being triggered. And I'm like, Charlie, like, why are you so triggered by what they're saying? That's just their beliefs. And so I had to check in with myself. And when I realized that I had felt rejected from the church, and that was something I needed to heal within myself. You know, I was also able to deal with the astrology, the psychic things, and everything else. And so when I realized that my own fears were showing up in all of these different situations, of the fear of rejection from Christians, when I decide that, you know, I am interested in psychics, I am interested in tarot cards, I am interested in crystals, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. You know, when I shared that with, you know, my friends who are Christian, in my life that is based on, a lot of it is foundation of Christian focus right now, like at the time, you know, will they reject me again like they did about the homosexuality thing, right? Because I had someone higher up in the church kind of like feel some sort of way about like my journey of homosexuality. And so, like, you know, I started to feel those feelings again. And the thing about me is that I'm very protective, because I don't like, it really makes me sad to witness other people be turned away or rejected or talked down to because they don't know something or because their experience is different or their beliefs is different. And so when I see certain posts or certain things people say that I know can hurt other people, it kind of makes me sad. But I know too that even some things I may say, you know, may offend people. And so like this is all part of our journey. And you know, it is what it is. It's we're just trying to manage it. You know, everybody's doing the best they can, and we're all trying to manage it. And we all want to help. And most of us want to help in different ways. And sometimes our message get, you know, misconstrued a bit, and it kind of like takes attention away from other things. And you know, our message don't always get delivered in the way in which we intended to. So that's a little tangent, but yeah, so I go on to, you know, I'm interested in these things, and you know, I'm not really telling my friends at the time. I'm really isolated. I start isolating myself, right, because I'm dealing with my depression. I'm leaving my job. I'm really wanting to get into coaching, like making that my job and my focus, and it's just so many things going on because I'm also changing, right? Because now that I got this awareness and I'm mindful and I'm learning about ego, right? My whole world, my inner self is changing. So now my outer world is changing, right? And different people are aligning with my path, and I'm aligning with different people's paths. So everything around me is changing, right? And so I'm afraid, right, kind of to lose the life I kind of had created. And so part of that was the whole idea of Christianity. Like, if I decide to go into, you know, oracle cards or get readings, like, you know, does that mean that I'm creating something, I'm choosing something else over God, right? And in this case, it was like I felt like I had to choose Jesus or oracle cards, Jesus or crystals, Jesus or this, Jesus or that. And so like I was like wrapped up in this whole world where I just kind of almost was isolating myself from my friends who do consider themselves Christians, because like I had heard the things that they had said about people who use crystals and use this and use that. So I already knew how they felt about it, right? And so because I knew how they felt about it, I had assumed that they would just reject me. I wasn't willing to try. I was preparing myself for it and telling myself, well, if you decide to follow what really resonates with you, because tarot cards were resonating with me, crystals were resonating with me, readers were resonating with me. And the amazing thing about connecting with the reader was what I learned about that is that, you know, we're so quick to judge people and judge what they do and judge their gifts. But the reality is we all have this gift. And what made me really stop for a second was the fact that I had been getting premonitions since from what I remember, my late teens. I started getting premonitions. And I always had this knowing of a lot of things about people since I was a teenager, from what I remember. And so for me, it was kind of like, well, if I can do all these things, if I think I'm so special, if I think I'm magical, what makes me think these people aren't magical? And that literally was the mindset that came to me. Like, okay, you know all these things about yourself. So what makes you think these people aren't experiencing something similar? And even if it's not exactly what you're experiencing, just because you're not experiencing it in the way that they're experiencing it doesn't make it not true. And so when I started to think about that in the big picture, in this bird eye view, I was just like, you know what? I can't judge other people's journey. I can't tell other people what is right or wrong. And what the hell do I know, right? All I know is what I'm experiencing. And if I'm experiencing these things, right, which doesn't sound like they are familiar with the rest of the world and doesn't naturally resonate with everyone, then there's a big chance that other people are living lives that I don't quite understand, or having experiences that I don't quite understand, that I don't even know exist. And so that gave me a whole new perspective. And that's kind of like what really opened up my spiritual journey, to really be like, you know what? I'm okay with not calling myself a Christian. I'm okay with being open-minded. I'm okay with giving myself permission to explore, because I had always been questioning things. And I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong, because I don't know. But what I know is that what resonates with me is what I'm doing. And I have, even when I was thinking about, oh, I have to choose Jesus or these cards, or Jesus or this, or Jesus or that, you know, for me, like, it's never like I worshipped any of these things, right? I saw them as resources. I see cards as resources. I see, you know, I forgot what that thing is called. Pendulums. I see pendulums as resources. I see readers as resources. I see all these things, including myself, as a resource. That is it. And so, I knew that I didn't have an issue with seeing something else as God. Like, no. Like, I truly always have believed that, God can show up in different forms for different people, and what that looks like for you looks like for you. And I don't know all the answers. I don't fully understand everything, but from my experience, I kind of someone was telling me about Hinduism and the fact that God takes many forms, and it was so interesting when they told me that, because that is something I've always believed. Like, I've always believed that everybody was praying to the same God, that every spiritual path you choose leads you to the same place. What happens on your path, where you end up, I think it leads us to that same God. And it's just different manifestations of God, just like we are a manifestation of God. That's why we are oneness. There's this one source, right? You could call it God, source, universe, whatever you want to label it as. There's just one thing, and that we're all just extensions of it, and that's what makes us one. And so the more I am on this spiritual journey, I am learning that. But my journey came through from a place of me really opening up on my spiritual journey, and me really giving myself permission to simply really try to simply be right, and get back to my oneness with God. Really came from a place of me finally saying and not being afraid to be like, this shit doesn't make sense to me. I don't fully agree. And you know what? I'm really going to do what resonates with me. I'm going to do what resonates with me, and I'm going to do it as my truth. Like, that is going to be a part of my journey, and everything I do, I try to make it as a offering to God, right? So I really want to do things from a place of love, from a place of intentions of love, and not from a place of fear. And a lot of things I was doing, a lot of relationships I was in, I came to realize that it was fear-based, right? And so, like, the more I started to realize that, the more I realized, like, what the spiritual journey for me was all about. I have soul lessons that I know, that I know for sure I need to learn, and I need to get through, and I need to, and I just pray that I get to them in this lifetime. And I just want to do the best I can. And I don't know if I have all the answers, or even if I'm in the right direction. But the amazing thing about my journey and what I've learned is that, as you learn and as you grow, things change for you, and your beliefs change, and they change based on your experiences. They change based on knowledge and information that comes. There's going to be so many people who don't believe in Christianity, but who are, Buddhists, or who are Muslims, or who, believe in Hinduism, and, whatever else. We all have different beliefs, but I believe that we're all praying to the same God, and that, there are some great videos out on YouTube that talk about that oneness with God, and talk about what it means to be one with God, and what it means to say, I and the Father are one, or I and God are one. There's so much information out into this world that I don't know if we can all get to it. But at this point in my life, I kind of feel like there's a lot of information out there, and we can figure out what information resonates with us. We can figure out what our truth is. You can do the research, right? You can go through history, and you can figure out what works for you, and you can figure out what resonates with you, because I believe that there are going to be just different things that speaks to you. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but I know that my intentions are to give an offering to God in the form of love, to do things with the intentions of love, and to do it from a place of selflessness. And so part of this journey for me, of this YouTube, is to share my journey with you, and to be authentic about it, and to be honest about it, and to be real about it, and to let you guys know what it's like, what my experiences have been, and, share information that I'm learning. And I pray that it blesses you, and that it gives you a different perspective. And so for those out there who don't agree with me, I love you so much, and I really appreciate you and the truth that you stand in. You know, I had to learn so much this past year about myself and about my truth and about what that meant and how to stand in my truth and how to stand in my beliefs. And you know, I don't need to defend myself, right? That's not something I'm here to do. And I don't have to explain myself, because for me, you know, what I believe today doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to believe this tomorrow. And I don't feel pressured to do that. You know, some people feel like they have to know, I have to know. I'm just not that person. I don't need to know everything, and I don't believe that God is going to tell us absolutely everything. But I'm here for my journey, and I'm enjoying it, and I love it, and I have a lot of fun, and everything isn't perfect or doesn't always go the way I plan it, and that's okay too. I am here for it, and I am open-minded to what God will reveal to me on this journey. And so I pray that, you know, as I'm doing these videos and we're getting connected and I'm meeting my soul family, because I know you're out there, and I know we're about to link up. I'm just excited. I'm just so excited. And so this is my story of, you know, what my spiritual journey has looked like thus far. And so I'm not afraid of psychics anymore. I am not afraid of really anything. And my intentions are always from a place of love. And I try to be as mindful as possible about the decisions I'm making and my why behind them. And, you know, doing this YouTube means so much to me, because this is something I've been wanting to do. This is something that Spirit has told me to do. And finally, it hit me like, Charlie, like, this is the time to talk about your journey. Because, you know, we get so caught up with trying to teach. I can teach by being, right? I teach my love by being love. And I want to always respond to everyone I come into contact with love. But I also know that I'm human. And so when someone kind of try to reach out and come for me, trust and believe that the little feisty New Yorker is still there. And so, like, let's not get crazy. Okay, guys? Let's not get crazy. But I love you all so much, and there's so many more videos to come, and I just pray that this resonates with someone. If this resonates with you in any way, or if you have anything to say, leave a comment. If you resonate with what I'm saying, come through on IG and hit me up. Check out the B.O.L.D Project podcast. Let's link, okay? I'm so excited. I can't believe we got through this video. Ah! Your girl is hype. Hey, love you guys. Peace.